Hello, everyone. I'm going to go ahead and walk us through the extended eligibility differences. I did do a tutorial video back in the beginning of the fall to discuss how to extend your eligibility while staying at Whittier, and really what the difference is using your extra year and extra seasons while staying as an undergrad. Now, there has been different rules that have been extended by the NCAA that are only going to apply for the 21 to 22 years, so only this upcoming year. The biggest difference between those two is how you can still use your extra eligibility even after you've graduated or even after you've fulfilled all of your major requirements. So that's really the biggest one. So we'll go ahead and walk through the initial rules and how those are, how we can adapt those to extend our time here. So in order to be, whether you use an extra year or what you can essentially do is be enrolled less than full-time in your last semester. So if you're a fall athlete, all you have to do is be enrolled in the minimum number of units. That could be one unit or it could be just one class that is fulfilling your major requirements in your fall, and then you graduate at the end of fall. If you're a winter athlete, you can do that same exact thing as a fall athlete, but graduate after the fall and then still finish out your eligibility through the spring. If you're a spring athlete, originally you have to be full-time in the fall, then in your spring semester, you can be, again, only in one unit or in one class, just depending, again, that you're in the last semester that's required for graduation. But also the stipulation with that is you have to be an undergrad. So you essentially, if you wanted to stay an extra year, you would have had to hold off on one unit or one class and extend that into your last semester into the 21 and 22 year into next year. And so again, a little bit of a difference. You need 120 units to graduate from Whittier. So if you want to extend your eligibility, or if you were planning on extending it, you could either just be at 119 units in order to just take one unit for your next year, or you could be at 125 units, but you still had one major class or a class for a minor that's still unfulfilled. That class is the one that you have to take in your last semester, and that's all you have to be enrolled in your last semester. Now, to keep in mind, if you are enrolled in under full-time, you will have to pay out of pocket. So you don't get all the scholarships that you would have normally had. So you would be under enrolled full-time, therefore you would lose your financial aid. So that's one big thing to keep in mind. And that's usually why our athletes would want to then take the least amount of units possible, right? Whether that's 1 unit, 2 units, 3 units, the least amount possible because you'd be paying per unit. Okay, but again, the regular extension rules, that only applies to undergrad students. If you became a graduate student and you wanted to play at Whittier, then you would again have to be full-time in graduate work while you stayed eligible. Now, the biggest difference again with this new extension, new rule from the NCAA just came out about a week ago. If you graduate, let's say you graduate this spring, you would be able to be eligible to come back, but you'd have to be enrolled in 6 units. Now, again, if you graduate and you're under enrolled full time, all of your financial aid package changes. So you always have to keep that in mind, but you'd have to be enrolled in 6 units. So you could graduate, come back, enroll in 6 units that are either progressing towards grad school, that could be towards a second major, maybe you fulfill something else that you wanted to. Essentially anything that's going to progress a career goal, which again could be graduate school, you know, other classes that you need to do. Maybe you want to retake some classes that have to do with getting your GPA up or anything prereq wise. It could also include anything career progressing. So I'm going to explain a little bit more about as we go on. Okay, so this again has a little bit more of a breakdown for a fall, winter, or spring athlete. And spring athletes, you have 1 or 2 options if you wanted to graduate next fall. So you could graduate in the fall and come back in the spring and enroll in 6 units if you graduate in the fall. If you don't graduate in the fall, and this is probably the cheaper option, is that you don't graduate in the fall yet, and then again in the spring you either hold off a unit that's required for graduation, or again you go towards progressing into master's courses or anything else. Specifically, you could stay 12 units, go into a double major. So it just leaves the option a little bit more flexible for financial aid. Anytime that if you have a question, if you're a fall, winter, or spring specific, it's hard for me to get into specifics in these because I don't know which athlete I'm discussing. So if you ever have any questions, it's always advised to come to me. Now the form needed, this is only if you're going to be quote unquote a non-degree seeking student. So if you graduate, this is all based on the new bylaws. If you graduate right now, spring 2021, and you want to come back and use this at our institution or a different Division III institution, this would be the similar thing that we'd be filling out at our institution. So if you wanted to come back to Whittier, be enrolled in 6 units that are career progressing, that would be deeming you as what's called non-degree seeking. So you're not seeking a second major, you're not seeking a graduate or a master's program, you're just career progressing, non-degree seeking. So you would fill out this application, and this application would go review from our department. That review would be basically just confirming why you're trying to fulfill these extra units, how they're going to be career progressing, and what classes and what units that you would be taking. These courses, if you wanted to redo a grade for graduate school, you would put that course on there. Otherwise, we would assume and plan on all these classes being courses you've not taken yet. Now, a little loophole in this process, we do have extension programs here at Whittier. And so what an extension program is, this would be more specific, like a career progressing or non-degree seeking course. So a lot of these are computer programming. So illustration, character, Pro Tools, Adobe, Workshop, Storyteller, Media Maker, Intro to Web Design. So a lot of these are computer based, and they're non-traditional semester. So it would be 4-week, some of which are 1 day, some of which are 6 weeks. And those, again, the cost in the application process goes a little differently. But this is essentially something you could use to confirm eligibility and compile these units up with in conjunction with other units that would be qualified as career progressing. On this and on the non-degree seeking form, it allocates how many units are per extension course. That way, again, if you want to take, this design for social media, you want to take intro to web design, that would give you 2 units. So you'd have to fulfill with 4 over that semester that you're competing in order to confirm eligibility. Lastly, I'm going to have some documents, info documents. If you go to our dubcpoets.com website, you go to the Inside Athletics tab, it's going to pull down and say compliance and eligibility. Go ahead, go to that list, and then on the right-hand side, there's going to be a link for links and resources. So I will put the form here. It's going to be a little bit of a different form. It talks about extending eligibility form. I will also put the non-degree seeking form on there. Again, if anybody has any questions, contact me. My email is tsenyo@whittier.edu. Any of your coaches can contact me. It's tsenyo@whittier.edu, and you can contact me with any questions about the forms.